Allie, our planner, that covers that issue of affordable housing. And I don't know how he did.
But that doesn't have to do with number of rentals, does it?
Yes, it is. Wouldn't most of the affordable housing be considered rentals?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily? Okay. All right, well, I'm just asking the question because I remember we did the.
It would be
affordable
quite a
housing.
sale price. It would certainly be quite a sale price.
Affordable housing is what it's saying, not for rental.
All right.
Well, David, I was answering Kevin's,
Yeah.
there is a document on file.
Okay.
Written by Al that,
And I'm somewhat familiar with the document, but I
Yes.
don't think it dictates anything with rentals.
You're
I'm
talking
sure
about-
that was way back when the various communities were told they had to have a certain percentage
Set aside.
set aside for affordable housing. And we were among the villages that did not qualify at that time. But Al did something called supernumerology,
Supernumerology.
and the document indicates that the village did comply.
I think it's the sale price actually that was back in the settlement and with the town, some of the townhome prices.
Probably 6 to 8 years.
Yeah.
There is that document
Yeah.
in the file where we do qualify.
Okay, well, I just didn't want to open up another can of worms, but it's something that I wanted to throw out on the table here for us to all think about.
The Affordable Housing Act had to do with the sale, purchase of homes for low-income people. When I came from Riverwoods homes were selling for $1 million. There's no affordable housing there. We were not in that mix. We had affordable housing here. Okay. Right, Hainesville, Round Lake, Round Park, this whole area.
The other thing on these absentee owners, these are all 43 individuals, or a bank owns them, or a mortgage company owns. I would be more in favor.
That is a very good question.
I would be more in favor to have them rent them out to people, to individuals who own units than a bank or a mortgage company or somebody, or a corporation or anything. And
Well, the hardship requests are definitely coming from individuals.
I understand.
Yeah, but my question was about the current ones.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about, the 43, the number in the email.
43, yeah.
43 units, because I indeed asked that. I was lucky to get this information.
Right.
They said they're working on that right now. I'm going to give the floor to Dave Priz, who is a resident of Cranberry Lake North.
Yes, Dave Priz, 567 North Triumph Court, Cranberry Lake North. I have continually asked questions of our board at the meetings I've attended, which are most of the meetings, and one of them is, or was, the number of rental units and number of vacancies, which I've had a lot of trouble getting information on in the past. Only recently has the board opened up to me and my suggestions and my questions. It was my understanding that they themselves approved various Section 8 rentals in the complex, and that anyone individually can take in a Section 8 as a tenant. And I wasn't aware of that. I thought it had to be a certain project as a whole, a certain apartment building, a certain complex. But I was told that individual units could be applied for Section 8 tenants. And so an individual owner had that option. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Well, pardon me, but my understanding of Section 8 is that it's a state program, correct? And you would then, if you were one of the, just say you were one of the first 15%, just to make it easy, and you could then apply to the state and say, I would like to open myself up to Section 8 housing, but you would then still be responsible. It's still your property. It's just you're renting to a low-income person, and the state makes up the difference in what the person can afford to rent, pay for rent, and what the person is the going renting.
Market rent.
But that has nothing to do with being a hardship rental.
No.
It has more to do with, whether or not the house qualifies under certain different setups and how it is.
Okay, I want to make a couple recommendations here, because I think we can go in a lot of different circles here. I think we have a job right now, number one, of pursuing granting a hardship rental to the party that submitted all the proper paperwork, and I will get clarification if this other person I'm not sure of can do that before the next meeting, to our satisfaction, Jim Rock's satisfaction. I think that's our obligation, very clearly. Number two, Jim Rock and I had been, obviously discussing this topic back and forth, and we had a discussion prior to the board meeting. I updated him again on my conversation with the president of the association. I've had some frustration that, I think this board has not been as diligent or on top of the record keeping. You go to the Cranberry Lake townhomes just across the way, they have a very different attitude on rentals, and they have a very rigid, pretty strong record of everybody that's a rental and what their percentage rate is. So we got two extremes here. But the one thing that Jim Rock and I quickly concluded is the attorney that represents Cranberry Lake North needs to contact Jim Rock. I think we should authorize Jim Rock to speak with the Cranberry Lake North attorney, because the bigger issue is, given where they are with their current percentage, because, this is not going to be the last of the requests. Let's not kid ourselves. And so, if there's a covenant change that they're looking to do, that is their job, and I think Jim Rock needs to explain that to their attorney, and I think their attorney needs to go back and have some strong discussion with their board about what their job is on this matter.
No, just to be clear, it's better for all of us to not have them change comments to say, oh, well, it can be 50% rentals. Right? It's better for us that it's not.
Well, yes and no, because there's some merit right now. There's another way to look at it. If you want to know, out of the three associations, who we get the highest percentage of foreclosure notices on, and the ones that has the highest number of vacant properties, it is the association that is very strict on the rentals. And, they've had 22 units for sale at one time. So that's a problem. And if that goes on for a long period of time, the financial stability of that association being able to take care of itself gets more in jeopardy, because you're losing that association fee on all those units. So, it's not that easy to say that. I mean, you know what? 15 years ago, yeah, when these covenants written, yeah, it's real easy to say that. You would think, and Ted and I were both on the board back then, I want to remind everybody. So Ted and I think, can stand and agree on this one, is, you thought of a hardship of somebody coming to you, that somebody who has lost a job or has had a sickness or something, not where you would have people coming in numbers, because people are upside down in their mortgages, and unemployment at 9 and 10%. And quite frankly, in today's market, having your house on the market for 6 months is nothing. Back then, that was a lifetime.
But also, you have another problem. These units are getting old now. They're going to need roofs, they're going to need some outside maintenance. You got a 6-unit apartment or a 6-unit structure, and you lose 2 people out of that units. Now they need a new roof put on. The other 4 people got to bear that burden. It's going to cost them. You're going to see a lot of other people getting financial hardship. So keeping those units full so everybody can pay their fair assessments is got to be the ballgame here, because I'll tell you, next 5 years you're going to see a lot of roofs going on, you see concrete work being done, siding being done, but just maintenance work.
Right now, our board has no control over what their board sets as their covenants, correct?
Correct, but the only thing is the board can't arbitrarily change a covenant. They have to get a vote from all the membership.
The only thing we can affect, as I said earlier, is whether or not we accept this hardship request because it exceeds 15%. We have no authority over the board, because they've exceeded their covenant from going from that 15 to that 27%. Am I correct on that?
That's what I don't understand.
Yes, you are.
So I am correct. Whether they choose to,
Raise or lower it is the.
well, they violated it, there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, it's nice that they're coming to us now, but they violated their own covenants, and they can change their covenants through their process.
Right. Their responsibility in terms of those covenants is to the owners of the properties. And they, if they wish to change those, they need to follow the process that's laid out in their agreement. But this board doesn't have authority to mandate any kind of change in those documents. As you said, the authority granted the village board in the covenants of the two is the authority to determine whether or not to allow hardship rentals. That's literally, in terms of this question, the only authority that the board has.
So I think there's value in this discussion for the mayor to share our desires with the associations, what their covenant should be, should we allow, or should they allow more rentals or not? But beyond that, it's kind of correct.
Well, yeah, and they're open to that. The other thought is, I mean, let's say they don't change the covenant. Let's say they leave it, okay? Which they can choose to do that. I mean, Jim may talk to their attorney, and they may say, we're not gonna change anything. We're just gonna send them to you on a case-by-case basis, okay? Then we need to be prepared to get a process in place. Because as I said, I don't think we're gonna do 2 or 3 of these and that's the end of it for a year.
Yeah, to be quite honest, at this point, the issue really is that the president of at least one of the associations doesn't have a clear understanding of what needs to get done. Their request initially to the mayor was a request that this board waive any limitations on rentals. This board doesn't have the authority to waive, just give a general waiver to the percentage of rentals. We have to follow what the covenant says. But I guess in terms of what we would be interested in seeing them do, we probably do want them to address this with their members in some manner, because you don't want, I don't think as a board, we want monthly administrative hearings on, I mean, they'd almost amount to that, on hardship questions. I think we want the individual, we want the board and its members, the condominium association board, not this board, to handle that. And if that means making some kind of an amendment, then they ought to have that conversation with their owners. Otherwise, they're putting this board in a position where you're going to be perhaps regularly considering these hardship requests.
In essence, though, if they come to us, if an individual comes to us having met the criteria set out in the covenants for hardship, we say yea or nay.
That's correct.
And I don't even know if we need a process for that, because the process.
Well, you have a process of why did you grant this one and say no to this one? I think you have some accountability there. The other thing that comes into play is what about the other property owners? Let's go to the devil's advocate side. The property owners that say, I bought here because I like this language in the covenant. And now,
Go to your association.
and now the village is rubber, well, that's why the question needs to be asked. Are we gonna say if this is gonna be in high numbers, why don't you take a vote about your membership, about changing your covenant?
I have a question, just for clarification. We can't waive their 6-month having to have it on sale, up for sale either.
No, we
Right.
can't waive anything. The
Right.
covenant states what the
Right.
covenant states.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
I think just, if they can't, if they're crying hardship now, where are they living?
Exactly.
I mean, if you're telling me the guy's living in his car in the parking lot at Walmart, more power to him, but if he bought a house in Gray's Lake and he can't afford to pay for both of them, you know what, I don't feel sorry for him.
That's not our job.
I know, but I like.
The covenants-
But that's,
So-
the person that has submitted all the proper paperwork is not in that situation.